That's a huge question. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know where to begin, to be honest. I mean, I'm a filmmaker, Black woman, obviously, and I am a part of a film collective called Minkie English Film Society. And yeah, my goal in life is to forward Black women cinema in any way possible, like my own work, and also to support other women. And so that's my involvement in the collective. I'm also an educator, and yeah, I don't know. We'll go from there.
I identify as she, her, hers. I guess you can probably see a little bit of what I try to identify or ask the question really about is identity. I'm fascinated by it. It plays in all my work. I primarily work with short form content, comedy, dramedy, weird. There's a lot of clowns in it because I actually am a clown. I have two clowns. I have a day clown and a night clown. So my day clown is the child-friendly clown, Giggles the clown, and my night clown is Cha-Cha Margarita. But I have been a performer since I was, tiny, and I feel like there's an evolution that I keep having every couple of years. Now that I'm getting more comfortable with that, so it's exciting to see the new things that I have. But it is always that weird question of like, when you go to a party and they instantly want to know what you do, and not necessarily who you are. So I've built the muscle of saying I'm a multi-hyphenate, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a performer, and all this stuff. But it's always, I think, day by day for me. Today I'm having an amazing day. It was nice to be here and just go dive into the world of. I feel like my people, because I've been to a lot of film festivals where I feel like I'm an outsider. But this was really delicious to see the perspectives. And the biggest question that I've had of late, this last week, was, how do we tell stories in our way, not necessarily Hollywood's way or how people want to digest it.
And I'm so grateful for everybody who came together on this, because it really it was nothing until all of a sudden, like 2 days before, we had this whole cast, and I was just like, and I was asking a lot of questions, having feelers. I was just like, I'm not telling a trans story. I'm telling a personal and individual but universal story. Doesn't make sense. And everyone who came to the project just said yes to it. So I think ultimately it was just like we had this goop that we just kept streamlining it until we finally saw like, okay, this is gonna, it may not make sense to everybody, but it makes sense enough that we're telling a story that is that female existential story that you don't get to see. Tag, you're it.
So yeah, my film is Fuck Like a Star. So it's the one with the ants and about Tony. It's like based on a Toni Morrison passage, but it's like an adaptation of it. And so, yeah. So the film, I mean, it's. I read Tar Baby, where the passage comes from, in college, and it's just a book that I always return to. It's not one of her most popular books, but it's something that has always resonated with me. It's particularly that passage, and so I've always wanted to adapt it. Like, I think I read it before I became a filmmaker, and then when I became a filmmaker, I knew I wanted to adapt it in some way. But I thought it was going to be something more, I don't know, like CGI or something like that, like more with the ants. But I was in like this creative slump, and I was just like, there has to be a simple way to do this. And so I called up my friend. I was going to New Orleans, and I was just like, why don't we just get some macro lenses? I'm a shooter as well. I shoot documentary films. And so I was like, I'm gonna get some macro lenses and try and get as much doc footage as possible and see if there's a way to adapt the film through that. And so I knew I wanted to get women working, I wanted to get the ants. I tried to get the ants, but it didn't turn out as well as what we ended up pulling through archive. And just use that to tell the story of this like ant journey. And yeah, so that was the process. And the intention was to, I guess, really commune with the passage in a new way. Because for me, I don't know, I think it can mean many things. I was on a panel at BAM a few weeks ago, and someone said it's a problematic relationship that Toni Morrison is parsing through in Tar Baby. And I think that's so like fitting and to describe it that way, because I think that, yeah, for women who are in relationships with men, it is problematic in some way, and it's complicated, it's messy, there's a lot of trauma that comes out of it, but there's also a lot of magic that can come out of it. And so I think that's what the passage meant for me, and I just really wanted to try and work through it. And yeah, in shooting it and also editing it and yeah, screening it, I still feel like I'm still working through what it means for myself. And I don't know, I guess for anybody that's watching it, they have different access points. So yeah, that's it. So in terms of like, did I succeed in its intention? I guess, I don't know. It's hard, you know, to tackle Toni Morrison. I think that there's so many layers in her writing. So I don't know if I can ever be successful in that, but I know that I made something that is an adaptation of my interpretation of that passage. So yeah.
So at this point, I'm going to open up the conversation for us to all engage intimately with the ladies. For me, there were a lot of themes that came out from both films. I'm not going to speak on the other two films because the filmmakers aren't here, and there isn't any representative for the other films. But primarily for the women's film that we just saw, I'm not going to. Hi, Candace. I'm not going to speak on the dualities that I saw, but I'm interested in hearing your perspective on how you felt maybe the films connected. Yes, yeah. And then I'll give my feeling on that. Does anyone?
I feel like they connected in the search for self. From within, as opposed to from without, which is something that we don't often do as human beings. I'm not going to specify females, just human beings in general. That's my viewpoint.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I feel there was a commonality with the water, the images of the water that are throughout the 4 films, and also in the search of self, the spirituality, or the spiritual path that takes you to the search of self. That those, it may not have been as conveyed as strongly in the first film, but it's still, you know, the young girl who's saying this is what I'm going through, and her sister or, you know, cousin honoring that, you know, so that struggle of what one's going through to find oneself. So those were some of the things that were stirring in the pot, and to see them expressed in different ways, or to see us on the screen expressing different aspects of what people